This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry, it took a long time. I'm calling them since past 10 minutes. I'll try to get the user ID and password from them. Okay. So see here. I hope you all are able to see my screen. Can you see my screen or not?
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Able to see your screen.
Okay. So see here. Previously we have discussed on fields, field groups, indexes, full text indexes. Okay. So today we will start with the table properties and then we will move further. Now, first of all, for each and every table that you create in Dynamics AX, there are few properties which are mandatory. Okay, I mean to say you need to set those properties at any cost. Okay, because most of the times, 90% of the times, I observed that few of the properties are always skipped. They are useful, but as we don't know the purpose, we will skip them. Okay, so let's see all the properties in detail today. First one is label. You know about a label. Okay, it is a display name. So either if you said or not, that doesn't matter. Title field 1 and title field 2, these two are again very important properties. Okay, so whenever you want to see something at the glance, okay, whenever you want to see something at the glance on the top, okay, then you will use this property. If you are using this title field 1, as the name indicates, it's the title. Okay, it will show at the top. Let's say for example, let me try to check if it is available in the standard screen. Let me show you. So each and every place on the glance, if you want to see some set of values, you will define the title field 1 and title field 2. And Dynamics AX has provided only 2 fields. Okay, so coming to the address field, on the glance, if you want to see some sort of field, okay, 90% of the times we will try to look at the zip code. Okay, it will just indicate the record selected. Okay, for the selected record, what is the zip code? To indicate that we can use this properties. And then if you want to set street, you can set street or country, whatever it is. Okay, remember that is the purpose of title field 1 and then title field 2. Okay, and almost everywhere you will see this here. Almost everywhere you will see these title fields, and even on the form as well. To show the values at the glance, we will set this up. Okay, just a second, it's loading. And remember, whenever you are working with the table, set these 2 properties. Okay, it is mandatory. It's a best practice because it will allow user to see the values at a glance. Okay, it will be useful for the user, not for us. And the next one is the behavior properties. And in these behavior properties, the first one is cache lookup. Already we have seen clustered index, create record index, primary index. We know these 3 properties. Now cache lookup. What is cache? What is cache? Because each and every time you will say, oh, it has stored this much cache and that much cache. What does this cache actually mean? Because even if you see the memory, it has committed 13.2 GB and cached 2.3 GB. What is this cache actually? So this cache, okay, because I don't know what you call, because it will be called as cache. Some people will call cache. Okay, whatever the word it is. Okay, I'm calling it as cache. So now what does this cache does is, whatever you're operating regularly, whatever you're processing regularly, it will store that information. Okay, let's say now if I open, coming to the system cache, okay, coming to the system cache, if I open Microsoft Word, it knows that and it will store that word in the memory. So what will happen? Obviously next time when I open the Microsoft Word, it will open faster. Okay, it will open faster. The cache is also similar. What does the cache in Dynamics AX does is, it will do the same thing. Okay, because in Dynamics AX, as we have seen the architecture, okay, as we have seen the architecture, let me show you. There is application object server and there is database server. There is application object server and there is database server. Where they are? Do you say, oh, application server and database server both are at same place? No, application server is at another location. AOS can be at some another location. Both are not interconnected. Okay. Even if you want to pull some data, there is only one possibility. You need to pull the data from. You need to pull the data from where? You need to pull the data from database. So each and every time do you suggest to connect to database? What do you say? What is your opinion? Oh, where is that image? Okay, I think I showed you on the snipping tool. Okay, so database server and the application object server both are not interconnected. Even if they are interconnected, that is through the network. So each and every time you need to pull the data, you need to remember that the network traffic is going to consume a lot of time. Okay, so what will happen? Obviously, user is going to face issues. User will face the slowness. To avoid that, what we will do? We will cache the data. We will cache the data. And how many types of cache are there? Coming to Dynamics AX, there are two different types of cache here. What are those? First one is called client side. Second one is called server side. Okay, client side cache and server side cache. Okay, and coming to the client side cache, whenever a select statement is executed, okay, whenever a select statement is executed, select statement is executed on client side, then it will create a client side cache. But frankly speaking, whenever you are performing the database operations, you should never do them on the client side. Remember, this is very, very important. Database operations should be done only on the server side. Okay, but in very few scenarios you can, but you should always try to do the database operations only on the server side. Okay, so when a select statement is executed on the client side, then client cache will start building up. Okay, and coming to the client cache, there are limitations. In client cache, it's not unlimited, it's limited. Okay, it will only create 100 records. Okay, per table it will store only 100 records. After that, if you get records, it will create the previous record and then it will insert the new record. That is how the client side cache will work. Okay, and the next one is called server side cache. Okay, what is that? Server side cache. And server side cache is again build up at the server side, at the server side. And even server side cache as well limited, because let's say you have 1 lakh records and you have set up the cache. What will happen? If you cache all the 1 lakh records, you are going to use 1 or 2 records per day. Yeah, why to cache 1 lakh records? Whatever the records that you need to only cache them. You should not cache all the data at a time. Okay, depending upon the type of the table, we need to decide whether to cache the whole table or whether to cache only part of the table or whether to cache whatever the data that we get. We need to decide that. Okay, to decide this, we have two different properties. One is cache lookup and the second one is table group. Okay, now coming to this cache lookup, you can see there are 5 types. First one is none. If you set it to none, you are saying that I don't want to cache any data. Okay, you are saying I don't want to cache any data. Second one is not in TTS. If the select statement is not in transaction, then cache it. Otherwise, don't cache it. If it is inside the transaction, don't cache it. Found. If the select statement is executed and the record is found, then only cache the data. Okay, found and empty. Select statement is executed, even if it is empty, cache that select statement. That is what is meant by found and empty. Entire table, cache the entire table. Okay, now coming to the types of tables. Okay, I don't want to divide in many different types. The tables are mainly divided into two different types. Okay, I will say only two different types. One is called master data. Second one is called transactional data. Okay, one is called master data. Second one is called transactional data. Master data. Let's say you have the information of the customers. You have the information of the addresses. So what do you call this? This is the master data. Transactional data. Customer has purchased a product, okay, and he is purchasing daily, okay. That means he is making transactions. So what I can say? I can say sales transactions is nothing but the transactional data. The transactional data. Whenever you are trying to cache the master data table, we need to use found. We need to use found as the cache lookup property. What does it does? What does it does? It will simply cache the record whenever we have it. Whenever you are using the transactional data, you need to use not in TTS. Means if it is not inside the transaction, then only cache it. Okay. You might ask me, oh, why you are saying not inside the transaction? Why we need to cache if it is not inside the transaction? Because when it is inside the transaction and you are trying to cache, you're frankly speaking, in transaction table, you will have millions of records. Okay. Whenever they are selected, if you start caching them now, always to cache the records, it will take a lot of time and you will get performance issue due to caching. Due to caching. Okay. Remember, this is about cache lookup. And along with this, a few times people used to say, whoever know AX 2012, we have one more type of table called parameter. Okay. If you want to define this as a third one, you can do that. But I want to call this as also as a master data, which is why I did not say that in a different fashion. Okay. So coming to the parameter table, it will store only one record per company. How many records? It will store only one record per company. Okay. Now let's go and check. Now here this is a address table. Address table is it a miscellaneous? No, it's a main table. Okay, it's a main table. So we will set it to main. And what would be the cache lookup? The cache lookup can be found. You might ask me, oh, you can set entire table. Hey, even the addresses as well, it will contain lakhs of records here. Whenever you do the caching, it is going to cache only, even if it is on server side, it is not going to get the entire table data into the cache. Okay, it will only fetch some amount of records. Okay, in Dynamics 365, I didn't see the limit, but in case of AX 2012, it's max 2000 records. Okay, it's max 2000 records. Remember that. Okay, so whenever you are trying to work with these properties, if you are depending upon the table group, we need to apply the cache lookup. Okay, so this is a main table, so you need to apply found. Similarly, if it's a parameter table, as I told you, one record per company. If it has 10 companies, 10 records, so you can do entire table. Remember, if the records are less than 2000, then go with entire table. This is what I say. If the records are more, then don't go with entire table, because even if you go with entire table, it will not cache more amount of records, because the more amount of records, the more amount of RAM will be consumed. So it will not cache the whole lot of data. You can't cache 1 lakh records at a time. If you cache 1 lakh records, what will happen? The memory will get increased like anything here. So we need to cache only some set of records as needed. And sometimes people used to ask one more question. I see that AOS memory is always increasing and it is ever ending. This is the reason. AOS will cache. It will cache the data whenever it will execute some business logic, which is why when you start the AOS, okay, you will see that the memory will be approximately 1 GB. And if you see it after 2 months or 3 months, you will see that it will be around 10 GB or 15 GB. The reason behind that is caching. Okay, remember. Now the next step. Okay, the next step. This is about cache lookup and table group. I hope you understood this well. Now I will go to the next step. The next one is the concurrency. The next one is the concurrency. So what is concurrency? Concurrency will indicate how you want to execute the database operations. Okay, the inserts and updates, mainly the create and update and delete operations, how you want to execute. What is the concurrency control you want to use? Here there are two different types of concurrency controls. Okay, there are two different types of concurrency controls. One is called pessimistic concurrency control, second one is called optimistic concurrency control. Okay, so these concurrency controls are used to indicate how much time you want to lock the table. Okay, what is the time you want to lock the records? Okay, if you are updating, what is the time you want to log that particular record? Because for example, sometimes what will happen is, to update the record, we need to go and hit the service, and then we need to come back, and then we need to update the record. So when you are hitting the service, it will take more amount of time. At that time, if you use optimistic, because I will say 90% of the times, always everyone used to say optimistic concurrency control is the best. But depending upon what we are working with, depending upon what we are working with, we need to decide whether to go with pessimistic or optimistic. Okay, because even when you are working with the query SQL statement, when you are writing the select statement as well, you can decide this. So you need to decide based on the requirement, because optimistic means it will only log the record during the update, and then immediately it will unlock the record. Okay, but sometimes what will happen is, you need some long running operation. For example, it might take 1 or 2 seconds, and then that operation that operation has a dependency of the current data. That operation has a dependency on current data. So what you will do, if you use optimistic concurrency control, let's say there are two updations on the same record happen simultaneously. If you use optimistic, what will happen? You will lose one of them. Okay, in that scenario where you are doing long running operation and there is a dependency of the current data, then you need to go with pessimistic. And there is no dependency, and you can update the record at any point of time. Okay, the current state of data is independent, then you can go with optimistic concurrency control. And frankly speaking, in my career, I can say once only, I think only once I had that requirement. Okay, in all the other scenarios, I used only optimistic. Okay, and if you don't want to use optimistic concurrency control at the table level, means, as I told you, the current state of data has the dependency, then you need to set it to no. By default, it is yes. If you have that kind of dependency, then you need to set it to no. Okay, because people used to confuse here. Always we can use optimistic concurrency control. That is not the case. Okay, which is why they have given us two different set of types. Okay, two different concurrency control types. That is why they have given us. Otherwise, they would have not given us the concurrency control. They would have by default defaulted it to optimistic. Okay, so we need to use both of them, but in majority of the cases we will use only optimistic. As I told you, if there is a data dependency, the current state data dependency, then we will go with pessimistic. Okay, remember, the next one is AOS authorization. If you want to perform some CRUD operation, create, read, update, delete, if you want to have the application object server to authorize, then you need to use AOS authorization. You can see, to read the data we need AOS authorization, to create and delete the data we need AOS authorization, create, read, update, delete we need AOS authorization. Okay, if AOS authorization is not mandatory, then you need to set it to none. Okay, if you are setting this to some value, either create, delete, then first of all it will take the authorization from application object server and it will check, and then it will create or delete the data. Configuration key we have already seen. Country region codes already we know this, because it's same. If you want to define the specific country region code explicitly, then you can do this. And the same thing, if you have any field relevant, if you want to add the field relevant to this country region context or the country region code, then you can add it. It's not mandatory. Okay, these are again created by created date time, created transaction ID, modified by modified date time, modified transaction ID. These are again the important properties. Okay, because sometimes the customer has the requirement. The requirement is whoever created the record, he would like to know that. Whoever modified the record, he would like to know that. Then what we will do? We will set this created by field to yes. This is a system field, and whenever we set this to yes, it will create one more field in the database with the name created by. It will create one more field in the database with name created by. And when the record is created, to know that we will use created date time. Okay, for addresses this is not needed, but for transactions you need this. And then created date time. When, at what date time the record is created? To know that we will use created date time. Created transaction ID. If you want to generate a unique global unique identifier each time a record is created, then we will set this created transaction ID to yes. Otherwise, we will set this to no. Next, data sharing type. Okay, whether it's a duplicate or a single record. Okay, and then this is again very important property, developer documentation. And frankly speaking, I will say 100%. Okay, this developer documentation, no one will use it, but this is very important property because this is used for the operations team. This is used by the operations team mainly. Whenever there are any change request, whenever there is any change request, or whenever you're trying to extend your implementation, then this property will be used. But obviously no one will define this. It will throw the best practice warning as well, but even then they are not going to define this. Developer documentation, please define. This property is used by the other developers to understand what is the purpose of the table. What is the exact purpose of the table? To understand that, we will use this developer documentation. Okay?
Are we attaching any document here? Just
No, it's a label.
okay.
It's just a label. Okay. Again, audio issue in between? No, yeah, I don't know because I don't think so. I'm using the same headset,
No,
same configuration, everything same.
no, now it's fine, but initial time,
No, there
What
is
was
no
the
issue.
issue? Okay.
what word was getting skipped?
Okay, I don't know because it's again, I bought the new headset. It's the same headset, same configuration, same laptop,
Now it's
everything.
better.
Okay, all right.
Now it's better.
Okay. Please also check the video whether it is missing or not, because in between I have muted for around I can say 5 seconds because there were a lot of dogs barking outside, so I muted for around 5 seconds. Okay. Developer documentation. So you need to define this, and this is a mandatory property. Please remember. Okay. Contains address details. Done. Now similarly, we have the durability, entity relationship type. Like this, you will have few more set of properties. Okay, whether you want to have the schema and data or schema, we can define them. Okay, because there will be a whole lot set of properties, and you can see the next one would be is obsolete. What is obsolete? Whether you want to use this table in the next version or not, or whether you want to use this table or not. If you set this is obsolete to yes, then you are saying that this table is obsolete and I don't want to use them in the future version. So once everywhere the code is modified, you will delete this table. Okay, once everywhere code is modified, you will delete this table. If you want to do that, initially you need to use this is obsolete to yes. Okay, and if you don't want to do that, you can set it to no. Modified by who modified the record, modified date time when the record is modified, modified transaction ID to create the GUID. Okay, and whether you want to run this on the server or not, or whether you want to have this on the shared company or local. Okay, this is what is the operational domain. Okay, and I can say there will be few of the properties which you will use rarely. Okay, save data per company. This is again a regularly using One. Now I want to ask you one thing. Address details. Is it shared data, or can all the companies can have this data? Can it be shared,
Yes.
or
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we
it
can
can be
share.
shared? Because this data will be same across the globe. Customer data. Can customer data can be shared?
No.
Okay. No. Because customer data should be specific to the company. And then storage mode. Whether you want to store this in a disk or in memory. Remember, this is again a new concept. And actually, to make the things faster, in one of the project, okay, they came up with performance issues. What they have done is they have set for all the tables created, they have set it to in memory. What is in memory? In memory means it will store inside the RAM. Okay. Obviously, what people will think is if anything is running on the RAM, it will be faster. Okay. But when it will be faster, no one will understand that. Okay. Let me show you. So what happened is whenever they are running the dynamic AX, now you can see here my RAM is 8 GB and it took 2.6 GB and 5.3 GB is still available. Now what they have done is they have set it in memory to all the tables. At the initial stages, no data on the table. Dynamics AX will work. Frankly speaking, it will be very faster. Okay, it was very fast. The customer was very happy. It happened around 1 month or 2 months. After this, he is trying to load something and application is getting crashed. He is trying to open a form, application is getting crashed. Can anyone tell me why? At the initial level, it is very fast here. You can't assume how much fast this is. The application is. After 1.5 or 2 months, whatever he is opening, the application is getting crashed. He simply
AOS
complained
is
this.
AOS is crashing due to high memory. Like
Yes, because whenever it needs to retrieve the data, it is trying to pull the data from RAM. Even if it is trying to pull the data from RAM, what should happen? It should have some amount of memory. As the data gets increased, if you are storing the data inside the memory, obviously it will increase the RAM size like anything. So as the RAM size increases and it reaches 98, 99%, the application will get slowed down. This is what happened. So whenever you are storing the data, you need to set this property to in memory, and this is available only in Dynamics 365. You need to set this to in memory for the table which you are going to use very regularly. Okay, there will be few set of tables from which you will pull the data very regularly. Those set of tables you need to set in memory, and don't set it to in memory when it is transactional table. Okay, just a second. Okay, you need to set this to in memory when when you will have few set of tables with some less amount of data and you are going to use very regularly. Then you need to set this to in memory. Got it? Clear? Okay. Now, subscriber access level. Whether you want to provide the read access or whether you want to provide the update access, delete is the highest one. Okay, and there is a difference because few of the times people used to see this correct and update. What is the difference? Update you will use for updating the data. Correct will be used with time state data. Correct will be used with valid time state data. Okay, you will have a property called valid time state field type here. Can you see this? We have a property called valid time state field, and when we create a date time field, I will show you. Okay, so what we will do is, let's say there is an employee in a company. Okay, so for that employee details, if we need to store, what we will do? What we will do is we will be having a valid from date, and then we will have a valid to date. Between these two dates, it is valid. Okay, and if you want to change the information, there is a thing called soft delete and hard delete. Hard delete means delete the physical record from the database. Soft delete means, what is soft delete? Update the valid to date to current date. Okay, because employee will be bind to the company, but it's not for the lifetime. He will bind to the company only for few years, I can say 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it might be, but it's not for lifetime. So what we will do, we will use soft delete and we will update the information. We will keep the record, but we will update the information. In that case, we will use the correct permission. Okay, and then system table. Is it a system table? No, this is not a system table, so this will be no. Okay, table contents. Okay, so base data, default data, and base default data, I will explain you about these details later on. Okay, because this has some significance. Table type, we have regular, in memory, temp db. Regular means the data is persistent. In memory and temp db means the data is not persistent. If you want to use the data for temporary storage, then we will use in memory and temp db. Okay, in memory will be having the faster performance, but the drawback is you cannot create indexes on it. If there is no requirement of creating the indexes, and if you have less amount of data, let's say some 10,000 or 20,000 records to be displayed on the report, then we will use in memory. If you have more amount of records and we need to define the indexes and all that stuff, then we will go with temp db. Okay, regular, persistent. In memory and temp db, not persistent, it's a temporary data. Valid time state type, whether it is a date or date time. Okay, whether time has a significance. If you have time as time also has the significance, then you need to use UTC date time. If you need only date for valid time state information, for valid from and valid to between, then you need to use date. Got it? Okay, next, these are the properties related to inheritance. I will explain you this later on, because I will explain you what is table inheritance. At that time, I will show you what are these properties. Okay, so these are the properties of a table. These are the properties of a table. Okay, and please try to work with these properties and check. And I think it's already 8:45. Okay, 15 minutes, I can't create a table. Okay, so let's do one thing. We'll break here. Please let me know if you have any queries on these properties.
Kumar, two doubt on. One is your AOS authorization. So when we say AOS authorization is yes, it means to say it will ask for user ID password all the time, or exactly
No.
what?
It will not ask user ID and password. AOS authorization means it will go and check whether the AOS user has the access or not. Okay.
Okay, whether
And
he
it
is
will check
permitted to.
exactly.
Then what is the use of okay, that permanent to the table? Okay, there is one more property you shown. Just missed the name.
Okay, what is it?
I missed the name.
Oh, you need to make a note of it. Okay, no worries. You can check that property and then you can come back at tomorrow. Okay, no worries.
Yes.
Yes, Kumar, this is not related to properties, but somewhere you explained about transactional data and master data, and with some parameter data.
Yep.
So could you please elaborate the yes, parameter thing, because I didn't get.
So see here, parameter means by default, let's say you have a currency. Okay, currency will be unique, so you need to set it only one time per company. Okay. So how many times will you store the currency? If you store one time, that is enough. So one record will be enough to store this kind of information. Okay, there will be some unique set of data, which you want to have default values. That thing we will define as a parameter data.
Yeah, is it like similar to config data? For example, we set customer groups a single time.
Remember, in config data, data you can have multiple records. Coming to the parameter, you will have only one record in the table.
Okay, yeah, clear. Thanks a lot.
Okay, yeah. Next.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a doubt regarding is obsolete property. If we set this property to yes, and if the table has dependency to other tables, then those dependent tables will also be obsolete.
No, it's not like that. Only this one will be obsolete. Dependent objects will be there as is. But later on, if you are using it in the dependent objects, you need to modify them, and you should not use this obsolete object in it.
Okay.
Obsolete means you are saying I am not going to use this in future. Then why you are using that in the dependent objects? Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Next. Any other queries?
Can
The
we
data
just,
sharing type, Kumar.
can we set up in memory for customer table, because it's a regular table and every day we use?
I will say no, because customers can be, you can have millions of customers.
Okay,
if
we
you set
need
it to
to.
in memory, obviously you are going to block the whole memory. You should not do that.
Okay.
Okay. Data sharing type. Oh, 1 second. This one, huh? Okay. I will get back to you. Don't worry on this. Next. Any other queries? Okay. Thanks all for the session. Let's meet again tomorrow same time. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks, Kumar.